Ramping up for your next week, we've declared first alert weather days for Tuesday and Wednesday with the chance of unseasonable heat conditions. We talk about how hot we're expecting it to get and those rain chances for your weekend.
Plus, with severe storms rolling across parts of the country, we take you to places being impacted by more flooding and how they're beginning the cleanup process.
Live on your side, First Alert Weather Extra starts right now.
But first, our incredible storm footage for today comes from storm spotter Ryan Carty, this time in Brush, Colorado. Check out this time lapse of a shelf cloud moving over the horizon. We see that a lot around here. There was actually a brief circulation out ahead of that as Ryan was there. A lot of incredible video. It's in a time lapse. It wasn't moving that fast.
Right.
When you get a lot of rain, the cooled air, it almost looks like a plow, like a snow plow.
That's a good way to describe it. No snow, though.
No. Try to take our mind off the heat a little bit. We are coming off of this first alert weather day, though. The temperature's starting to improve. And Lauren, you sent out the update today. Tomorrow we did back off on that alert day because the heat levels will improve some. But let's show you what's next here, because we have called it again for next week, because the heat's going to crank up around Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. And first off, how about this tropical wave we've been telling you about all week? You can see a live look from the Gulf Coast. This thing, it seemed like it might try to become better organized, and it's over land now. But there is a concern here, and we're going to check in a few moments. I want to make sure we show you what's happening right now. Some flood warnings in the New Orleans area because of this system. It's slow moving, and I've seen flash flood warnings in that area. Next 3 days, if you're heading down to the coast, got to watch it for some of these scattered downpours, although the center of that system is now well west, and we're not talking a hurricane or anything like that, just more of these scattered storms and showers, but some of those could be real heavy as far as the rain totals. Sunday, though, rain chances look to start to back off along the coast. Water's still choppy there, so that rip current risk, just keep a watch on those beach flags. For us, the big story's been the heat index topping 100, but with more of these scattered afternoon storms and showers moving in, that's going to help us a little bit with respect to the heat index levels. We have first alert weather days for heat next week coming up for Tuesday and Wednesday. And when we look into the long range forecast, right now we have heat index for most of us in the 90s. Next week by Tuesday and Wednesday, we could see those values around 103. More about that coming up here in a few moments. But you can see by next week the temperature really cranks up. But let's get in here on radar. I want to switch over to our graphic system here. Lauren's going to zoom in. We'll start out in West Alabama, just kind of move across the state, and you can tell you look at these downpours, they're very, very small, but when you zoom in, all these little pockets of red, that's where the rain's really coming down. You can have some very high rainfall rates with these tropical downpours like this, so we're getting some much needed wet weather. Actually, I say much needed, it's just been so hot out there, something to really help cool us off. But you can see south towards Duncanville, some more pop-ups. All this is tracking south to north if you're following along on the radar. So Pickens, Tuscaloosa County, we've seen some of this south towards Greensboro. We're getting to Jefferson County. I've been watching right here. Need to watch this. It looks like if we go in really close, the lightning counter still setting at 0, but just stay alert here out towards Bessemer, Fairfield, Bluff Park areas, out towards Rossbridge, Highway 150. Could be some lightning with this if this does continue to intensify. So just giving you the first alert. That is moving north and will end up around Hueytown, Nemolga, Adamsville, over towards Minor, and perhaps around Pratt City in those areas. Gadsden getting a little pop-up shower now from Gadsden back to Steele, Asheville. These are also lifting north. Some more areas as expected. It looks like Margaret also there between Trussville and Margaret and Argo areas. We had a few of those pop-ups, but you look at it from afar and it's very, very spotty. Just some very tiny downpours that are on the map, but these are moving south to north and will continue over the next couple of hours. So that's what we're going to be tracking through this evening. And as we look ahead into what's on the way for next week, again, we've got that hot weather to talk about. Meteorologist Lauren Linehan standing by right now. And Lauren, that upper level ridge this time of the year, when we see that strengthen, we see the heat go up, got to watch it around next Tuesday and Wednesday, first alert weather days.
We do, yeah. Wes, when you and Tania came in today, that was kind of the first thing we were talking about. It's like, yeah, it's been hot the past couple of days, but looking at the data, it really does look like the heat could be building even more next week. And this is why we went ahead and declared those first alert weather days because we don't want to play around with this summer heat. It looks especially hot, and it's because of this ridge of high pressure that is going to be building in next week over the Gulf Coast. So with this high pressure ridge in place, it almost puts a little lid over the atmosphere, and so it really helps to inhibit widespread storm development. So you may be able to get a little pop-up shower and storm each day next week, but the big thing is that this ridge just allows heat to build. So it's like a dome of heat. We call it a heat dome as well. And so you just see temperatures climbing, and likely what we're going to see is a possibility of this ridge to allow temperatures to get above average. So this time of the year, we're typically in the low 90s. What we could see going into next week is the possibility of temperatures to get in the mid 90s. And here's the deal. Okay, low mid 90s. We've seen that before, but we've had unusually high humidity levels this year, even for central Alabama. We expect it to be humid because we're parked right next to the Gulf. So the humidity is not going anywhere next week. In fact, it could get a little worse in some spots. So when you factor in those high humidity levels with that building ridge, that's why we've declared first alert weather days for next Tuesday and Wednesday, because I think we're going to see a more consistent trend towards temperatures getting over 100 degrees that feels like temperatures each day. So that means it's going to feel worse to your skin, and we're likely going to see a situation where more heat advisories are issued. But why do we keep stressing that this high humidity is what's making the heat so much worse? Well, we kind of have to look at how humidity impacts our health. When we have low humidity, when you have, let's say, a dry heat in the summer, it's hot, but it's not as humid outside. You're still, granted, hot because it's hot outside, but you've got drier air in place. And so when evaporation happens, it doesn't need a lot of moisture in the air. And so evaporation, the sweat on our skin, allows us to cool. But if you're in a situation where there's high humidity, there's a lot of moisture in the air, that sweat doesn't have anywhere to go, so you just aren't cooling down. Well, as we face these dangerous temperatures in the forecast, we're on your side with a safety check about the importance of staying hydrated. Alabama's Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Karen Lander, says hydration isn't just about water. She recommends a mix of non-caffeinated drinks and even electrolyte solutions. But don't go overboard. Too many electrolytes can actually cause problems.
But persons who have certain underlying medical conditions, such as kidney disease, for example, or again, if you have cardiac issues, for example, you need to be careful about the amount of sodium that you're drinking. You need to be careful about the amount of potassium that you're drinking, since you really follow the advice of your healthcare provider.
Also remember, of course, to always use sunscreen and wear light colored clothing that protects your skin. And if you can, stay indoors during the hottest part of the summer. Tania?
And taking you across the nation now to Missouri, where heavy rainfall triggered dangerous flooding. Fire crews performing 18 water rescues this morning for those who were stuck in their vehicles. Since late Wednesday, more than 5 inches of rain has fallen across Kansas City, marking one of the wettest days on record in July. And with the chance for rain increasing across the South this weekend, across the nation, more than 3,000 flash flood warnings have been issued this year by the National Weather Service. That's the highest that number has been through the same period since 1986, which is when those warnings started being tallied. Roughly 170 warnings were issued on Sunday and Monday. Officials at the National Weather Service are saying flash flood emergencies, which are considered life-threatening, are noticeably higher this year compared to 2024.
And Tania, this comes as the Trump administration has paused work on a new database that would warn Americans of their flash flood risk. The database would, for the first time, take the influence of climate change into account while making precipitation frequency estimates. It would also help people understand their risk and make for significant cost savings when designing and building infrastructure projects. The pause comes as flash floods from historic deluges have struck from New Mexico all the way to New York City. Well, still ahead, we continue to talk about those rain chances as we head towards the start of your weekend and talk about how warmer nights are actually making it even harder for us to cool down. We'll be right back.
Hey, are you doing Beyond the 7 Day?
Welcome back in, everyone. You're watching First Alert Weather Extra. Meteorologist Tania Michelle here. Let's talk about what's happening right now. Yes, we're following some showers and even some thunderstorms. I'm seeing the greatest activity in parts of Etowah County. So if you're over in the Gadsden area, some heavy rainfall coming down over towards Anderson, Bath Springs. Look at this right here, even right around the Daisy area. So if you're in that area, please be careful. Not seeing any lightning with it, but still some heavy rain that can make an impact to any drives that you may have to take for this evening. Not only is that area dealing with rain, but there looks like some heavy pockets of rainfall in parts of Tuscaloosa. We're talking about just north of Tuscaloosa, the city, and over towards, there we go, Tuscaloosa, and we're looking at Northport Elementary School, Bachelor subdivision. So if you're in that area, seeing some pockets of heavy rainfall for you as well. Well, the good news is for those of you getting some rain, you're also getting a little bit of heat relief, but that doesn't mean that the UV indexes won't be high over the next few days. Burn time can happen in minutes. We're talking about in 10 minutes or so heading into Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So please make sure you're wearing that sunscreen, layering it on as much as possible, and protecting your skin at all costs in this summer heat. Of course, the UV index is a problem. You want to wear your sunscreen. You want to drink your water to stay hydrated. But the good news is tomorrow there will be more breaks for you to enjoy dry weather. If you need to get out and mow that lawn early in the day or later in the evening, try to avoid those peak hours of the day, but still another hot afternoon. There will be that chance for showers and storms and some periods of heavy rainfall. So what do you need heading out the door tomorrow? That sunscreen, yes, SPF, layer it on multiple times throughout the day. Stay hydrated, drink water. Sunglasses, of course, is another good thing to have on hand. Umbrella and a rain jacket, and always the First Alert Weather app. Well, meteorologist Lauren Linehan is going to join us now with actually a little bit of a lowdown. She's going to give us the weather lowdown, okay, on how these warmer temperatures at night are impacting our ability to cool down, Lauren.
Yeah, Tania, you know, it's just not as simple as us seeing a situation where, oh, well, at least the sun's going down and we're just going to totally cool down at night. Oh, we're kind of getting into that time of year, that pattern that we often see setting up in the middle, late July into August, where the summer nights are turning a lot warmer. And if we actually go back and look at the climatological data, what you'll notice across the U.S. is that in general, since the 1970s, that warmer nights have increased on average in the summer. So as we look at how this has actually been affected in Birmingham by decade, you can see back in the 1970s, in general, it wasn't as bad, but each decade we've kind of gotten a little bit warmer. Thus far for 2020 to 2024, we're just maybe not quite as warm as we had been in the 2010s, but it's still, this is looking basically at the average annual nights per summer that you see temperatures running above average, those morning low temperatures. And we're not talking about high temperatures, we're talking about low temperatures in the morning. So you can see in the 2010s and 2020s thus far, on average, we've seen about 25 to 30 nights where temperatures have been running above average at night. You can see this reflected in the climate data since the 1970s. There has been a steady increase in the Birmingham area that minimum low temperature overnight has actually gone up almost 4.5 degrees over the past 50 years. So let's say like tonight, we were forecasting for 67 degrees, but in reality, we're forecasting maybe 75 degrees for the morning. So even just that little bit of difference between the mid 60s to the mid 70s, it can have such an impact on your body, because we were just talking about how when it's more humid and it's warmer, that just has more impact on your heat. It's harder for us to cool down because our sweat doesn't have anywhere to evaporate. And then it can also cause your heart to pump faster and your kidneys to work harder. So as we keep saying, make sure you're staying hydrated, limiting time outdoors, and definitely have that fan on at night when you are trying to go to sleep, Tania.
I sure will, Lauren. Cranking my fan and AC up, right? Still ahead, we talk about the heat expected for next week because, yes, it's heating back up. You wouldn't believe your eyes, though. We talk about fireflies in your moment of science when we come back after the break.
All right, welcome back to Weather Extra. Tracking a little bit of rain out there. We're getting some showers lining up roughly along the I-59 corridor. Very small as far as the size of these little pop-up tropical downpours, but where they're happening, it's cooling things off. There's a nice little pocket of rain not far from Taylorville moving towards Tuscaloosa, and it's moving south to north. Also around Lake Tuscaloosa, you can see there towards Carroll's Creek. That's going to move north towards the north side area. And Pickens County, a few showers around Clanton and the Birmingham area. From Birmingham back to Bessemer in here, tracking some rain moving north. That's about to cross the Bessemer Superhighway. You can see up towards Hueytown, Sylvan Springs, a couple of pop-ups. Not seeing lightning with that one cell, but I am tracking a storm with some lightning near Gadsden. You can see actually towards Nakalula Falls. Folks need to be seeking shelter there, seeing a total of 3 strikes. Not a lot, but that threat for cloud-to-ground lightning is there. But these are mostly tropical downpours because of this, a tropical disturbance. And you can see where the center was located not far from New Orleans. Watch how this storm forms and just stays there. Of course, this is a part of Louisiana. It doesn't take much rain to cause some flooding issues, but the slow motion of this, the high rainfall rates resulted in some flash flood warnings there around New Orleans. But just to show you where that's located, didn't quite make it to tropical depression status, but that system is drifting off towards the west direction. But we stay sort of on the wetter side of this, the soupier side. We've got that south flow. So even though tonight by 10 o'clock, most of the wet weather, once we lose the heating of the day, sort of settles down, tomorrow it stays very humid. So it's still going to be a hot day, just those heat levels not quite to that first alert weather day level again late tomorrow, but we'll see some 80s out there. But notice by 2 o'clock, we start to see more of these scattered showers and possibility of some storms. This will be moving from south to north, so watch it in the afternoon and evening for the possibility of a passing shower or storm. This will continue into 9-10 o'clock tomorrow night, close to midnight. Most of this comes to an end tomorrow night, but we've got to watch it Saturday afternoon and Sunday afternoon as what's left of that tropical wave will come back, move in our direction. So we'll be seeing more of these scattered afternoon showers and storms this weekend into early next week. And again, we have called those first alert weather days because the heat levels will start to ramp up later next week. We're cranking up the heat across the area as we go to that 10-day forecast. You can see high temperatures right there in the 93, 94 range. Heat index up to 105. So middle of next week, again, we're going to sort of see those heat levels go to that next level again. And we'll watch the next few days. Just stay with us. We're here to give you that first alert. Any big impactful thing that we see going into the weekend, I think tomorrow late in the day, still got to watch it. Some of these storms, if we have some slow movers, you can quickly see those rain amounts add up to the end and have flooding issues. So we got to watch for that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, Wes. That's one of the things that we'll be paying attention to and giving you updates on. But checking in with our amazing first alert weather watchers at those current temperatures, some areas like Wes mentioned, getting some heat relief because of the rain. Now, it's nothing you want to play around with, though. You still want to be careful as those heavy rainfall can impact any drives that you have to take, visibility. So just take it slow out there. But for areas that are dry, still a little bit warmer, it's still hot nonetheless and very humid all across the area. In Alabaster, John King 88. In Concord, John Talbot 90 degrees. Rim Lap, Stephen Duke 86 degrees. But the heat is not going anywhere anytime soon. It's actually on the rise heading back into next week. So that's something to keep in mind as you make plans going back to work next week. You still want to keep the light clothing, the sunglasses, the sunscreen on stock because we're going to be tracking more above average temperatures heading into the end of the month of July. This is looking at our temperature outlook July 23rd through July 27th. But what about rainfall? What about our precipitation outlook? Well, here's a look. Looks like much of the U.S. is going to be dealing with a different range of rainfall, more above average rainfall for the northern half of our nation. Looks like more below average rainfall for parts of Texas. We've got Oklahoma and parts of Missouri, but looking across the Gulf Coast, still some areas like Louisiana dealing with above average rainfall, whereas us here across central Alabama, more near average. But that's a full look at our temperature outlook. Let's talk about the bugs though. We mentioned this a little earlier, the bugs that light up the night sky, especially during the summer. Dan Smith shows us how and why fireflies glow in your moment of science.
They're a summertime staple in certain regions and some of the most efficient lights in the world. This week, we're dimming the lights to get a clear view of fireflies. Well, not too dim. I've still got to read my script after all. Let's get right into how fireflies or lightning bugs glow. And it might sound a little sinister to start. Luciferin and luciferase. Guess the devil really is in the details. The first one glows under just the right conditions and is heat resistant, and the latter is an enzyme that triggers the flash, but not on its own. There's a special chemical called adenosine triphosphate, or ATP for short, that combines with oxygen to get those bioluminescent behinds going. All living things, including you, have ATP in them, and some scientists have used fireflies to track changes in diseased cells in humans. ATP is also useful for food safety as a quick test for how well sanitized the kitchen or factory surface is. Back to the fireflies. Despite the name, some of them are flightless and fireless, as it were. And they're not even flies, they're beetles. Look, it's a complicated thing. Of the 165 known species in the U.S. and Canada, the flashing ones are mostly found east of the Mississippi. Makes sense as they thrive in high humidity. There are also very specific species in Southeast Asia and the Smoky Mountains that blink in sync. Fireflies operate at near 100% efficiency with a trace amount of heat emitted from those flashes. By comparison, incandescent bulbs emit just 10% of their energy as light, with fluorescence coming in around 90%, though maybe it's not fair to compare electric and chemical sources. Like a lot of insects, much of a firefly's life is spent in the larval stage, up to 2 years of it, compared to about a month of those recognizable flyers at dusk. They're also carnivores, dining on slugs and snails at an early age, and even other fireflies once they reach adulthood. You can argue that goes both ways, though, with some birds, spiders, even ants bringing home dinner.
All right, the first alert weather day coming to an end, but it's still summer in Alabama, right? It's going to be hot out there over the next few days. And watching next week, also those afternoon storms.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on it.
We certainly will.
More-
And West Cincinnati will have more tonight.
Absolutely.
See you tonight.